I've seen a lot of people grab a cheap, handheld concrete cutter off a discount site, only to end up fighting a wobbling blade and a mess of dust after they get home. The regret that follows is usually a mix of wasted money and a half-finished project that looks worse than it started. That's why I wanted to spend a little time figuring out if the Husqvarna MS360 masonry saw actually feels like a smarter buy, instead of just another pricey piece of equipment you hope will work. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The first question most of us ask is whether the tool will actually make a day-to-day job easier, or if it's just another heavy box that sits in the corner until the next big job. When I started looking at the MS360, the biggest thing that jumped out at me was the patented water management system. Cutting stone, brick or concrete without water means a lot of dust, a lot of health concerns, and a lot of cleanup. Husqvarna's approach is to route water directly onto the blade while you're cutting, keeping the dust down to a thin mist that you can see but not breathe in. In practice, that means you can work on a patio or a basement wall without setting up a separate dust collection rig, and you're not constantly wiping the saw's face with a rag. The optional adjustable stand is another feature that makes a real difference when you actually step onto a job site. It's not just a tripod you bolt onto the saw, the stand folds down so a single person can lift the whole unit, wheel it to a new location, and then raise it to the height they need, whether that's a low-lying paver line or a higher block wall. I've watched contractors set the saw up on a slab of concrete, lock the legs in place, and then slide the whole thing a few feet without having to call for a second pair of hands. That mobility translates directly into saved labor time, especially on projects where you're cutting dozens of bricks across a wide area. Now, let's talk about the practical strengths that matter after you unbox it. First, the 14-inch blade paired with a 3-horsepower motor gives you enough torque to slice through standard concrete blocks without bogging down. The blade runs smoothly, and because the water system stays engaged, you don't get the overheated blade scenario that sometimes happens on cheaper models that rely on dry cutting. Second, the setup time is genuinely quick. You attach the stand, hook the water supply, and you're ready to cut in under 5 minutes. That's a big win for anyone who's juggling multiple tasks on site. There's no need to spend half a day calibrating the saw. On the flip side, there are a couple of trade-offs that are worth mentioning before you decide to spend the cash. The unit runs on a 230-volt line, which means you'll need a proper outlet or a generator that can handle the load. In a residential remodel where you're limited to standard 120-volt circuits, you'll have to bring in an extra power source, adding to the overall project cost. Also, while the water management system is great for dust control, you do need a steady water supply or a hose that can keep up with the flow. If you're working in a location without easy access to water, you'll either have to bring a tank or accept a higher dust level. Who should actually buy this saw? If you're a professional mason, a small-scale contractor, or a serious DIYer who routinely cuts pavers, bricks, stone tiles, or concrete blocks, the MS360 lines up well with your needs. The combination of a powerful motor, dust-controlling water, and a portable stand means you can move quickly from one job to the next without setting up a whole new workstation each time. It also makes sense for anyone who values consistency because the water system keeps the blade temperature stable. You'll see more uniform cuts, which is crucial when you're trying to lay a seamless stone walkway or fit bricks into a tight pattern. On the other hand, if your cutting needs are occasional, say you only need to trim a few bricks for a one-off garden project, or if you're operating primarily on a job site that already provides a dedicated dust extraction system, you might find the MS360's price a bit steep. A cheaper handheld cutter could handle sporadic tasks without the need for a dedicated stand or a 230-volt outlet. In those scenarios, you'd be paying for features you'll rarely use, and that money could be better allocated toward other tools or materials. One practical weakness that shows up in real-world use is the weight. The saw, even with the stand collapsed, is a solid piece of equipment. You'll need to be comfortable lifting and maneuvering something that feels more like a small table than a handheld saw. For a single person, the stand helps, but it does mean you need to be mindful of where you place it and how you transport.